Could the Supreme Court overturn bans on LGBTQ conversion therapy? This question is at the heart of a legal and cultural battle that could have sweeping consequences for LGBTQ youth, families, therapists, and the very definition of free speech in America. As the nation watches, the highest court in the land is poised to weigh in on whether states can prohibit a practice that many see as deeply harmful, or whether such bans go too far, infringing on constitutional rights. Here's what you need to know about this pivotal case and why it matters for so many people across the country. Conversion therapy refers to a range of practices aimed at changing a young person's sexual orientation or gender identity. These methods have been widely discredited by every major medical and mental health organization in the United States, including the American Medical Association and the American Psychological Association. Experts warn that these interventions are not only ineffective, but can also cause lasting psychological harm, including anxiety, depression, and even suicidal thoughts. That's why, as of now, 20 states and Washington, D.C. have passed laws banning licensed therapists from performing conversion therapy on minors. These bans are designed to protect vulnerable youth from practices that have been linked to trauma and increased risk of self-harm. But the legal landscape is far from settled. In a recent case that's now before the Supreme Court, justices openly questioned whether these state bans might violate the First Amendment's free speech protections. The case has sparked a fierce debate about where to draw the line between protecting children and upholding constitutional rights. Here's the legal tug-of-war. Opponents of the bans argue that these laws amount to government censorship. They say the bans restrict what counselors, therapists, and even clergy can say to minors and their families, even if those families are seeking guidance in line with their own beliefs. Some parents and professionals claim that the government shouldn't interfere in private conversations or dictate what kind of advice can be given, especially when it comes to sensitive topics like sexuality and gender. For these critics, the issue is about more than therapy. It's about protecting the fundamental right to free speech and preserving parental choice in how children are raised and counseled. They warn that if the government can ban certain conversations in therapy, it could set a dangerous precedent for other types of professional speech. On the other side, supporters of the bans insist that the state has a duty to protect children from harm, especially when the scientific consensus is so clear. They argue that conversion therapy is not a legitimate form of counseling, but a dangerous and discredited practice that can leave lasting scars. For these advocates, the bans are about safeguarding the mental health and well-being of LGBTQ youth, who already face higher rates of bullying, rejection, and suicide. Major medical groups have issued strong statements warning that conversion therapy puts minors at serious risk for depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. Studies show that LGBTQ youth who are subjected to these practices are far more likely to attempt suicide than those who are supported and affirmed. For many, the evidence is overwhelming. Conversion therapy is not just ineffective, it's dangerous. State officials defending the ban say they're not trying to police speech but to regulate professional conduct that has been shown to cause harm. They argue that just as the government can set standards for medical care and prohibit unsafe treatments, it can also ban practices that endanger the mental health of children. During oral arguments, Supreme Court justices pressed both sides with tough questions. They asked whether these laws are truly about banning speech, or if they're a necessary measure to protect children from harm. The justices also explored whether the government should defer to the current medical consensus, or be cautious, knowing that expert opinions can evolve over time. The central question: are these bans an unconstitutional restriction on free speech, or a justified effort to protect vulnerable youth? And, if the court sides with the challengers, what other types of professional advice might be at risk of government regulation in the future? The justices also considered whether courts should trust the overwhelming medical consensus against conversion therapy, or whether they should be wary of relying too heavily on expert opinion, since history has shown that scientific views can change. This question could have implications far beyond this case, affecting how courts handle expert testimony in a wide range of issues. A Supreme Court decision is expected soon, and its impact could be felt nationwide. The ruling could either uphold the power of states to protect LGBTQ youth from harmful practices, or it could set a new standard for how far the government can go in regulating professional speech. Depending on how the justices rule, the decision could reshape how states regulate therapy, counseling, and other professional services. It could also set a huge precedent for the rights of professionals to speak freely in their work, and for the ability of states to intervene when public health is at stake. This case is about more than just conversion therapy. It's about the balance between protecting children, respecting family choices, and upholding the freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution. As the country waits for the Supreme Court's decision, communities, families, and advocates on both sides are watching closely, knowing that the outcome could shape the future of LGBTQ rights and free speech for years to come. So, what do you think? Should states have the power to ban conversion therapy for minors, or is this really a question of free speech and parental rights? The debate is far from over and your voice matters. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for more updates as this landmark case unfolds.